Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's AP Lang lesson, which is book tasting at the AP Lang Cafe. Now, this is a little bit different because we're doing it virtually this year. If we were in class, we would be walking ourselves down to the library and we would find an array of books laid out on tables for us to browse over the course of the block. Unfortunately, we can't do that this year. So with the gracious help of Mrs. Strauss, we have found out a way to do this virtually. I'm going to introduce you a little bit to why we're doing what we're doing and what the purpose of it is. On the next slide, Strauss is going to tell you a little bit more about how everything is set up, how to go about getting books, etc. So the purpose of today's lesson is very simple. It is just to spend a class period, an entire class period, exploring books that you want to read. We're calling it a tasting. So think of it like if you are going to be hosting a wedding reception and you are trying to figure out what kind of food to serve at that wedding reception, you would go and do a tasting, meaning you would show up at the venue and they would put out sort of a display, a smorgasbord of all of the options, and you would taste a little bit of each one. And then afterwards, you would consider everything that you tried and figure out which ones you actually wanted to serve at your wedding. That's kind of what we're doing here. It's a tasting, not a grab and go. We're not walking into a convenience store and picking the first thing that appeals to us. We want to spend a little bit of time sampling and perusing so we can make the best decisions for us. So ultimately, the reason we're picking a book has to do with our research paper. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail right now, but I will let you know that basically what we do is everybody picks a book that is of interest to them. Ideally, it's something that you want to learn more about, a subject that you're interested in, but not an expert on. You read this book independently over the course of about 2 months. And then when it comes time to do our research paper, you're going to use the book that you picked to as kind of a springboard. The book should be sort of an introduction to the topic. It contains an overview of a whole lot of different issues. And then you're going to identify some of those issues that you want to look into further. And those are what you're going to research. Your research paper is ultimately going to end up tying it all together. So I don't want you to worry too much about the research paper aspect of it now. Don't let that influence your decision. My primary concern is that you're picking a book that you are interested in. All right. So the way today is going to work, as Mrs. Strauss will mention a little bit on the next slide, you are going to peruse the tables in this PowerPoint, visit as many as possible, view as many books as possible. You're going to click on the links instead of physically being able to pick up the book. We have linked to a book talk about it. You can also look them up on Amazon and just read, that little description of it. You can read reviews, etc. You might ultimately, once you have it narrowed down, you might even want to download a sample of it and read the first couple of pages. I want you to make good, solid decisions so you don't get 2 weeks from the end and say, oh, I hate this book, I don't want to read it. So by spending the time now to make sure that we have books that are that we're interested in, that not just in concept but in reality, we're going to be better off in the long run. I am asking you today to taste at least 15 books. There's probably 100 on here, and these are ones that have some of which have been used for projects in the past, some of which haven't. But my goal is to help everybody find something that they might, in fact, be interested in reading. Particularly, I want you, remembering that the goal is to explore, I want you to keep a particular eye out for subjects and books that are not going to be just reiterating things you already think or you already believe. The point of this is to learn something new, not confirm our existing beliefs. So keep that in mind. And yeah, you're going to want to pay attention to, you're going to want to look at books that are inherently interesting to you. But I also want you to not limit yourself and ignore ones that don't initially strike you, because you might very well find something that you didn't think would be interesting, that when you actually learn a little bit more about it, read that first page, you might say, oh, wow, this is really captivating. That's sort of the advantage of tasting widely, is that we get to try new things that we wouldn't automatically have thought we might like. So you're going to spend time today with several books, a few minutes for each. I'm going to ultimately ask you to fill out a Yelp review of your time tasting books today. And there's going to be several questions on there, one of which is going to be, I'm going to ask you to make a list of the things that you tasted. So do kind of keep track of which books you're looking at, so you can have that list. I'm going to ask you to elaborate, tell me a little bit about 4 specific books. There's going to be some specific questions on that. And ultimately, I'm not asking you, in fact, I don't want you today to make a decision. I don't want you to come into this saying, I know exactly what I want to do. I want you to pick 3 that you narrow it down to, and then we'll explore further. About a week from now, I'm going to have you commit to a book choice for this project. But for right now, today's goal is simply to explore, enjoy the prospect of potential reading, and then report on what you have tasted. And we will come back together next week and sort of figure out what to do with that information for purposes of moving forward. Happy tasting.